ability at this time of the day to match the energy or enthusiasm of the honorable member for Upper Salum. I'm sure my Badibunka sons will rejoice at hearing that. Honorable Speaker, I move that this August Assembly, pursuant to Section 34, subsection 5, paragraph A1 of the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia, extend for a period of 45 days, effective 18th May 2020, the resolution of the National Assembly, which was passed on 3rd April 2020, for the extension of the state of public emergency in the whole of the Gambia, declared by His Excellency President Adama Barrow on 26 March 2020, pursuant to Section 34, subsection 1A of the 1997 Constitution. I also move that this August Assembly affirm by resolution the following regulations pursuant to Section 5 of the Emergency Powers Act. The restrictions on open markets and shopping areas Emergency Powers Regulation 2020 as amended. The Essential Commodities Emergency Powers Regulation 2020 as amended. The restrictions on public transportation Emergency Powers Regulations 2020 as amended. The closure and restriction on non-essential public places Emergency Powers Regulation 2020. And the closure of educational institutions and places of worship Emergency Powers Regulation 2020. Madam Speaker, Section 35(5)(a)(1) of the Constitution provides 5(a)(1) of the Constitution provides a resolution of the National Assembly passed for the purpose of this section shall remain in force for 90 days or such shorter period as may be specified therein, provided that any such resolution may be extended from time to time by a further resolution, supported in the case of a first extension by the votes of not less than 3/4 of all the members of the National Assembly. But no extension shall exceed 90 days from the date of the resolution effecting the extension. Madam Speaker, you will recall that on 3rd April 2020, in response to the global threat of the coronavirus pandemic, as declared by the World Health Organization, WHO, and to which the Gambia is vulnerable, the National Assembly passed a resolution that extended the state of public emergency declared by His Excellency the President, pursuant to Section 34(1)(a) of the 1997 Constitution. At that point in time, only 2 cases of infection of the virus was reported in the Gambia, and 171 other countries had reported varying degrees of infections. As at that date, the virus had killed 20,834 people globally, according to the WHO. Madam Speaker, 3 days ago, as of 12th May 2020, the rate of infection of the coronavirus globally stood at over 4 million people, out of which almost 300,000 have died from the infection, according to the WHO. Closer to home, in Senegal, for instance, for the same period, the rate of infection stood at over 1,800 people. I'm now told it's over 2,100, with 19 deaths as at the time, and I'm now told with 23 deaths from the infection. When compared to the figures at the time of the passing of the first resolution on 3rd April 2020, Senegal had 195 infections with 1 death. Here in the Gambia, our rate of infection has also increased to 23. Unfortunately, only 1 reported death from the virus in the country. But we must not be complacent about this fact. There is no doubt that the coronavirus, otherwise known as COVID-19, continues to pose a clear and present danger to the Gambia and remains deadly. So the government needs to continue taking measures that will, among other things, break the chain of transmission in order to prevent a further spread of the virus, and concurrently alleviate the consequent hardship that all of us may face. The government is aware that the measures which may be imposed as a result of this extension will affect our lives. But like I said the last time I appeared before this August Assembly on this subject matter, this is now a matter of survival first and not about individual preferences. In this regard, you will recall that a number of emergency regulations were issued by His Excellency President Barrow to address these hardships. These include the Essential Commodities Emergency Powers Regulation, which sought to protect the public from price hikes and ensure adequate food supplies in the country during the period of the state of public emergency. Other regulations include restrictions on public transportation, restrictions on open markets, and the closure of non-essential public places. So in order to enable the government continue to provide effective leadership in this national preventive effort, the government must be given a margin of appreciation in deciding the measures it wishes to adopt, the duration, and these are key tools that should be put at the disposal of the government so that it can fully and effectively assume its leadership responsibilities to prevent a looming catastrophe in our country. Madam Speaker, the 45 days extension of the period of the state of public emergency granted by the National Assembly on 3rd April 2020 will expire on 18 May 2020. But the threat of COVID-19 still looms over us. The determination to break the chain of transmission of the virus is more needed now than ever before, in view of the recent reports from the WHO. And so we must intensify our collective national efforts towards achieving this goal. Therefore, Madam Speaker, a 45-day extension of the resolution passed by this August Assembly on 3rd April 2020, which extended the period of the state of public emergency declared by His Excellency President Barrow on 26 March 2020, will allow the government to continue to carry out its responsibilities towards the people of this country, not only to save lives, but to also balance the competing political, social, and economic interests we are confronted with in these difficult times. Madam Speaker, for these reasons, I move that this August Assembly, pursuant to Section 34, subsection 5A1 of the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia, extend for a period of 45 days, effective 18th May 2020, the resolution of the National Assembly, which was passed on 3rd April 2020, for the extension of the state of public emergency in the whole of the Gambia, declared by His Excellency President Adama Barrow on 26 March 2020. I also move that this August Assembly affirm by resolution the following regulations pursuant to Section 5 of the Emergency Powers Act. The Restrictions on Open Markets and Shopping Areas Emergency Powers Regulation 2020 as amended, the Essential Commodities Emergency Powers Regulations 2020 as amended, the Restrictions on Public Transportation Emergency Powers Regulations 2020 as amended, the Closure and Restriction on Non-Essential Public Places Emergency Powers Regulations 2020, the Closure of Educational Institutions and Places of Worship Emergency Powers Regulations 2020. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I would like to add a few remarks to this motion. Madam Speaker, the 45 days that the government is requesting is the minimum that has been recommended by the government's chief health advisor, who is here with us, and I'm sure he will be delighted to be given the opportunity to further elaborate on this. And it is based on the science that is available and the prognostics that have been made about this pandemic, not on sentiments, as the Honorable Member for Woolly West widely said. Indeed, the government acknowledged that more testing needs to be done in order to help the government determine what further actions may or may not be taken. The overriding objective of this motion is to protect life, including the lives of the people who live in your constituencies. The latest figures from WHO state that nearly 250 million Africans will be infected. 250 million Africans will be infected, with almost 200,000 deaths. 200,000 deaths. We do not want our people to fall in these statistics, or as many of our people as we can avoid. As leaders, Madam Speaker, honorable members of this august assembly, as leaders, it is our responsibility sometimes to lead public opinion and not to follow public opinion. That is what is expected of us in times like this. And it is incumbent upon us to do everything that we can, including sensitizing our own people about the dangers of this pandemic. Not just to follow their individual wishes and desires. Yes, the government admits that there is still room for improvement in the enforcement of the regulations. We will not run away from that. That's just a reality. Many other governments face similar challenges. But we also dare say that the regulations are being implemented and enforced in large part, in very large part. We can take this one after the other. Let's look at the essential commodities regulation, emergency powers regulation. Can we honestly say that the government has not protected these essential commodities from price hikes? How many times have we seen people being persecuted? It's been reported in the newspapers. Can we honestly say that the government has not protected these commodities from being exported out of the country? How many times have we seen in the newspapers people have been prosecuted for exactly those offenses? Let's look at the restrictions, or rather the closure of educational institutions and places of worship. Can we also say that the schools and the mosques and the churches have not been closed? Can we really say that? The few comments I heard from some of the members here are protesting exactly against that, because the government is enforcing those regulations. And the protest is for the government to lift the restrictions so that these places can be opened. That is enforcement in my book. Let's look at the restrictions I think I'm missing one regulation here. But let's look at the restrictions on non-essential public places. Another example. Are we saying that the bars are still open? Or that the cinemas and video clubs are still open? Or the gyms or the nightclubs? Or the restaurants? Is that what we are saying? Of course, they are closed. That is enforcement. Yes, I can go on and on with respect to other regulations. On public transport, we have seen reports of drivers being prosecuted, either for going beyond the limits that were imposed by the regulations or for increasing the prices that were limited by the regulations. We have seen those reports in our newspapers. So yes, the regulations are being enforced. But yes, there is still room for improvement. We have challenges, especially when it comes to the market areas. We will admit that. But enforcing the regulations with respect to the market areas will not be helped by some of the comments that have been made in this August Assembly. Because some of these regulations cannot be enforced by brute force. We need to accompany the enforcement of these regulations with sensitization for our people. We need to make our people feel that it's their responsibility to protect themselves before they can spread the virus to us. If we do not accompany these regulations with sensitization, we will continue to face challenges. So it is incumbent not just upon the government to enforce these regulations, it's incumbent upon each and every one of us, especially those of you in this August Assembly who represent your constituencies, who represent your people, to sensitize them. Otherwise, we can never, as a government, successfully implement these regulations because they cannot simply be implemented by force alone. Those days are over in this country. So help us, help this government enforce these regulations. That's my plea to you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, members. I beg to move.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Any seconder? Opa Nyomi was the first to register.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I rise to second the motion. And I also would like to seize this opportunity to make my intervention as far as this particular motion is concerned. Madam Speaker, we have the clear evidence on the world that there is a need for the state of public emergency to be increased, to be extended rather. And therefore, I am with the support of the extension of the state of public emergency. Madam Speaker, when you look at the number of infected persons being rising in the country, which is 23 now, and without surrounding Senegal, the number is increasing from 1,310 people, 2,310 people today. And the number of deaths also has increased to 25 as well, meaning that Gambia is surrounded by the fire. And we need to do everything possible to save ourselves and to save our people. Madam Speaker, with the projection of 181,000 people to be infected in the near future from the month of June, July, and August, definitely this country have all reason to extend the state of public emergency in order to save our people. Notwithstanding, we can look into the issues of markets, because many of our people are getting their livelihood from the market and who are living from hand to mouth. Even the suggestion that the committee came with, like the recommendation that we move some of them from the market to fields. Some are complaining that when you move them from where they normally sit in the market, probably when their customers come, they don't find them there. They will not bother themselves to look for them in that new location. So therefore, they prefer to stay in the market. So it's better, like we leave the regulation as it is. That's my suggestion. And with these few remarks, Madam Speaker, I'm not going to take the time of the Assembly. I'm giving my full support to the extension of the state of public emergency. And I also seize this opportunity to thank the health officers from the minister down, the effort they are putting in place to combat, COVID-19 in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I now put the question. It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable Assembly do consider the motion to further extend the period of state of the public emergency for 45 days in accordance with Section 34(5)(a), subsection 1 of the 1997 Constitution, and further affirm the period of the public emergency regulations made thereto in accordance with Section 5(2) of the Emergency Powers Act, effective Monday, 18th of May, 2020. Excuse me. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now, honorable members who wish to take part, can we please take the numbers?
Please. Motion.
So that we can manage the
please.
time, please.
I want motion.
Pardon?
Motion.
Motions?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, thank you.
Madam Speaker, I want to move that before we embark on debate on this motion, since the Honorable Minister of Health is here, we allow him give us some professional assessment, because we are being asked to make very important decision, and that decision should be based on some concrete facts. I think it is important that the Minister of Health comes and gives us a professional assessment of the 45 days that we have gone through, what were the challenges, what were the shortcomings, what are the gaps, so that we know what we are deciding.
What about? Yes, honorable member, I agree entirely, because before we can make, or the honorable members can make informed decision, they need to hear from the experts, especially health. But I would even add in addition also trade, because it will affect, like some people raise the issue of the price, the transport fare increases. But I would appeal, if you can please, as a matter of procedure, just withdraw the motion. Let's allow honorable members to make their interventions. Then before he responds, obviously, that is why the ministers are here. Before we take a vote, obviously they will be heard. And that's why they are here, because really that's as a matter of procedure. Searching for the relevant standing order. Just a second, thank you.
The minister has to come first. No, you move for the environment for the special. No, this is special growing rights. Special growing rights.
Members, we all have our interpretations, but we are all guided by the standing orders which we can read and understand. So please, can I just refer you to, I just saw it.
This one, 53. 61.
Sorry. Now let's all look at 61. Standing order 61. Now it talks of debate of motions and amendments. When the motion has been moved and seconded in the assembly, the speaker shall put the question thereon to the assembly, and in the same terms as the motion. Debate may then take place upon that question and may continue so long as any member wishes to speak, who is entitled to do so, subject to any allocation of time applied by the Assembly Business Committee. And 2, when he or she is satisfied that no more members wish to speak, the speaker shall call upon the mover to reply, and immediately the mover has concluded his or her reply, shall put the question to the assembly, and the assembly shall express its decision in accordance with the provisions of these standing orders. Honorable members, many a time have motions been laid here with honorable ministers present, and then they will always be allowed to come in. They can be heard. They partake in the debate. But my problem is just the procedure, the sequence of events. If you can further guide me, but I'm just concerned about the sequence. And mark my words, I'm concerned about the sequence, yes.
Can I, Madam, I refer you to Section 77, subsection 4 of the Constitution. Section 77, subsection 4 of the Constitution. If I may read it. The Vice President or a minister shall, when requested by the National Assembly, report to the National Assembly on any matter concerning a department or other business of government committed to his or her charge, and shall be entitled to attend and speak in the National Assembly whenever any bill or other matter concerning such department or business is being debated. So, Madam, it will be neater. It will be neater if we hear the Honorable Minister first to determine the nature and the tone of the debate on the matter, not after.
I don't think it would be after. I am not disputing the fact that the language of the Constitution which says that they are entitled, shall be entitled to speak and attend. I entirely agree that they are entitled to attend and speak. They have attended and they will speak. As I said, my concern is about the sequence. When do they come? Would it be better after hearing the members, before a vote is taken, and even before the Honorable Minister of Justice gives his response? That's it's not the mover. If issues are raised touching on health, then he should come to respond to those issues. But now if you allow him, if he comes before issues are raised, do we say that we allow him again to come and respond to those issues? I just want to be guided so that we make sure that, we do the...
In the first place, he is not the mover of the motion. He is not the mover of the motion. But he is here to provide us with data to enable us debate and make a decision.
He will provide after your interventions. That's what I'm saying.
That means we have already spoken. We would have already spoken. We would, madam, we would have already spoken if we, it would be useless. It wouldn't be helpful at all.
Sorry, you moved a motion. I just appeal that as per the standing orders, as I read it, we can wait. But we can go ahead with your motion. It has been tabled. We take secondment. Any seconder to motion? Yes, Cantora?
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for giving the floor. I rise to second the motion for us to hear the Health Minister to deliberate on matters concerning his ministry so that he can really inform us better to make decisions. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for Woolly East, since the motion will probably pass, why don't you think of amending it to include the Minister of Trade? Because it may have some... No.
Madam Speaker. No. Can I?
Thank you. It has already been seconded. It has been moved and seconded that we allow the Honourable Minister of Health to update the Assembly with regards to the health situation of COVID-19 before we open the debate. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. We now allow the Honourable Minister of Health. Please, Honourable Minister. Thank you. Oh, this is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Distinguished Honorable Speaker, distinguished Honorable Members of the National Assembly, we are indeed very grateful for this opportunity to come before you once again to chart the way forward for our nation together. We are always grateful for the frank discussions that are held in this August Assembly, as we always leave with better plans and ideas for the development of this country. It is like a refinery of ideas. I have listened very keenly to all the interventions, and we are grateful for them. We will endeavor to look into each one of them. They are all very important. Just kindly bear with us. We've also taken note of the special committee's findings and recommendations, and will endeavor to make sure that we register improvements on all of them. This is a very important period in our existence as a country. We have patiently listened, as I mentioned, to all the deliberations, and it has enriched us greatly. By way of giving you the general overview, globally since the 31st December 2019 and as of 15th May 2020, a total of 24,338,158 cases of COVID-19 in accordance with the applied case definitions in the affected countries have been reported. Of these, 297,119 deaths were registered. Africa has registered 54,190 confirmed cases, with 1,623 deaths registered so far. Senegal, our closest neighbor, has registered a total of 2,189, with a total fatality of 23. The Gambia, as of yesterday, has registered 23 cases with 1 death. We've been carrying out a lot of contact tracing in this country. Contact tracing is the cornerstone of the response in the prevention and containment stages. At first, all attempts were geared towards following people who had returned from hotspot countries. This is before quarantine started. These people of interest were asked to home isolate and were followed routinely by our health personnel for the development of symptoms. Those who developed symptoms were tested. Of those people, 350 were followed for 14 days. Now, the contact tracing is concentrated on following the contacts of the confirmed cases and the contacts of contacts. Once the high-risk contacts are identified, they are quarantined, and the low-risk cases are followed at home for 2 weeks. The target for contact tracing is 790, and 789 have been traced successfully. Of the low risk being followed, 105 were the total, and out of that, we went beyond to have followed 109 cases. The quarantine. Quarantine was started in early March 2020. Initially, it started with people traveling into the country from hotspot countries, hotspot zones. Initially, this was shrouded with challenges as many of the people were not cooperating. Quarantine is one of the interventions that has yielded so much dividend in the Gambia. Most of our positive cases, in fact, 76.9%, were all confirmed whilst undergoing quarantine. That means the risk of their association with the people when they became positive, when they started shedding the virus, was very low because they were already in quarantine. That means that they would have been identified by the contact tracing team and be kept under our watchful eyes. We were on our own able to start testing for those people in quarantine before discharge. This was not in any recommendation or guideline when we started, but it has turned out to be a very great intervention, and as we speak here, many countries have adopted that. We started here in this Gambia even well before the WHO recommended it, because we thought it made sense, because there was a period at which people start shedding the virus, and that is when the virus can be obtained for a positive test. Before then, they would not be positive. So we thought it was important to test anybody who had undergone quarantine before they were discharged, and many countries are following suit now. Of course, as we mentioned, this might be because if one tests early, those contacts, before they start shedding the virus, they will initially be negative, when the reality actually is that they are in fact positive. This has prevented many infected people being discharged into the community. This, however, is very expensive. It's a very expensive intervention, but it is one that has yielded dividend. As I mentioned earlier, 23 confirmed cases. Out of those, 17 were diagnosed whilst in quarantine. Currently, we have 94 people in quarantine, and 375 have completed the quarantine as we speak. I'm happy to know that both the Special Committee and the Health Select Committee had visited the quarantine sites. These are hotels with great services. Our health personnel and security officers also are present in those centers 24 hours to ensure the health and security needs are addressed. We have tried to make it as comfortable as possible for the people in quarantine, but of course, unfortunately, it can never replace their homes. So occasionally you see complaints on the media, but they have been taken very, very, very good care of. The average room has a television, an air conditioner, and even internet facilities. We have received a lot of commendation from people who leave our facilities, but of course a few concerns have been raised, and certainly few people will never be satisfied with whatever is given to them. But at this juncture, I think as a country, we have tried very hard, because we have seen big countries in Africa. I'll mention two examples. One of them took people to a quarantine center when they came from overseas and asked them to pay for themselves and left them there. Another big country took them to a quarantine center and asked people to pay. Noise, they took them out, took them to a primary school, left them there, threw mattresses at them, and then said it was their business and put security forces. Of course, Gambia, we never dream of that, so we have done our best to give our people a dignified treatment. As at present, we have spent more than $20 million in quarantine facilities. This will go up if we are still in the containment stage. If we are unlucky to slip into the mitigation stage where there are so many community transmissions that we do not even know the source of those transmissions at that point, because it could be so overwhelming that you don't know now who gave it to who. Then the strategy will be home isolation of infected and suspected cases. And we know how difficult that is in our communities, where we all live together, as had been mentioned by previous honorable members, speakers here. We live together, we eat together. Home isolation is easier for communities in the West, many of who were already isolated by their natural way of living. But it is very difficult for us in this country because our natural way of living is socialization. At present, our containment stage is going on well, as we almost know the epidemiological link of almost all the cases, and all non-contacts have been traced and tested. Coming to testing, testing is the cornerstone of this response. The recommended testing level is now at least 2% of the population, Honorable. The countries that have done a lot of testing have tested between 40 to 60,000 per million people. After this crisis, if we had 30,000 tested, we would have been in that range. But we want to go a little beyond that because of the way we live together here in our communities. As an example, India has tested 1,480 per million. That's what India has tested because of their population. And that is far below what the recommended total number is. The country that has done the highest number of tests so far is Portugal, and they have done 58,827 per million population. As at now, the Gambia has conducted 1,440 tests and have confirmed 23 positive test results. That means as at now, we are doing about 700 tests per million people. The case definition has been widened now. That means there is some modification as to what cases should be tested. So the case definition being widened to include all cases with symptoms of fever or cough and one other symptom. These are the people who need to be tested. Travel history and history of contact, which used to be part of the case definition, are no longer considered necessary in the definition of what we call a suspected case. This, therefore, will lead to an increase in the number of people to be tested and isolated. However, testing without symptoms is not recommended except for health workers who are involved in the management of these patients. But as we see, recommendations are there, but countries are supposed to take the recommendations and adapt based on their national realities. The way our markets are, the way our ferries are, the way our fishing ports are, is giving us more ideas to go into those highly densely populated areas to test more and more people. And this is the plan of the ministry. As of now, we are using PCR testing in MRC Fajara, and we are happy to inform the honorable members here that our Kotru National Public Health Laboratory is ready, and they'll start doing the testing, inshallah, next week. MRC Gambia is also extending the testing sites to Keneba and Basse, so that people do not have to come all the way down here to get tested. We are also hoping that once the Gene Expert cartridge is available to developing countries, we can have 6 other sites tested. We have Gene Expert machines, but the machines are locked by the manufacturers. That's the way they do their business. Now, cartridges have been manufactured specifically for COVID-19, but they have not been made available to developing countries yet. We learned that one big country has decided for them not to be exported. When that export ban is lifted, we hope to get these machines, and that means we can do more testing because the test becomes less dangerous for the laboratory staff then, and it can be done at more sites. We have 6 Gene Expert machines across the length and breadth of this country. Risk communication is ongoing. A lot of work has been done on the radio, on the TV, billboards, posters have been circulated. We've been having daily media briefings by the ministry, myself, and the entire team to help sensitize people, to communicate to the people, to give them the updates. This has been ongoing, and certainly the role the honorable members played in the sensitization has been remarkable, because a lot of communities that we visited, you had visited them before we got there, when I went to up-country recently, and most of those communities have attested to the information being shared to them. We want to use the opportunity to thank you very much. However, honorable members, Madam Speaker, distinguished honorable members, we are very concerned with the rate of false information in our communities, especially the use of WhatsApp messages. False information has been very detrimental to our collective efforts to fight COVID-19. They range from all sources: people scaring people, people talking about immunization that is not true. This has a detrimental effect because now, as mentioned by one honorable member, I think of Talinding, women are scared to take their children for routine immunization. That means COVID could be over, and we in our communities experience outbreaks of measles, yellow fever, tuberculosis, and other diseases just because women were afraid to take their people for vaccination. And we appeal to the honorable members to help advocate against this practice. Isolation centers. There are 13 isolation centers located in different health facilities in the country. These are usually 1 or 2 rooms in a facility that are earmarked to keep suspected cases until confirmation is made. Whilst there would be a team trained in infection prevention and control to take care of these patients. The people put in isolation centers are usually symptomatic and do not on average spend up to 48 hours in these centers. Once the result is out, They are either transferred to the treatment center if it is positive, and if it is negative, they are taken back into the patient pool of that facility to be treated as per their diagnosis. Isolation facilities are in the following centers: SAO District Hospital, Sibano, the Wek Clinic, Wiam General Hospital, Soma District Hospital, Bansan General Hospital, Carnifing General Hospital, Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital, Basse District Hospital, Farafenye General Hospital, Brikama District Hospital, Kaul Major Health Center, Fajikunda Health Center, and Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital. Some of these are earmarked for renovation and expansion, but they are presently usable. Treatment centers, those are the centers where after isolation, the patients that have tested positive will be taken to the treatment centers. In general, there are going to be 14 treatment centers. 14 treatment centers will be functional for the response. The following are the ones available and ready at present. The one at Sanatorium, that's for West Coast Health Region 1. The Deban Clinic, the first phase is ready and has 14 beds. Sanatorium has 42 beds. Now, Deban, these are all in West Coast Health Region 1. MRC Fajara equally has 30 beds for treatment. However, their main, the wards are available as well if there is a surge. That is 42 beds as well. The following facilities are either under renovation or construction. Sukuta, that's for Western Region 1. MRC Keneba and the Basse sites. Kafuta, the second phase of the Deban Clinic. Soma, Kanuma, Njabakunda, Wasu Palang, Bansang General Hospital, Palang itself, Basse facility, and Yorobawol. These are all going to get treatment centers. The idea is to have at least one treatment facility in each health region to avoid movement of patients and thus lessen the risk of drivers, the risk to the drivers and the staff. The criteria used for selection of treatment centers include accessibility to the road, access to water and electricity, proximity to a major health facility for laboratory support, and the possibility of getting accommodation for the staff who are going to be involved in the treatment of these patients. Procurement of equipment. At present, we have now gotten 20 ventilators, Honorable. We've gotten more since after your tour. We've gotten 20 ventilators now that are ready to be used as and when we need them. The procurement, the equipment that are supposed to be procured include ventilators, X-ray machines, ultrasound machines, patient monitors, ambulances, 33 ambulances. An honorable member asked, the ambulances are supposed to be 33. The procurement process by both the World Bank and the Gambia government will soon be completed, and the equipment will soon be here. The government has asked Turkish government to help airlift these items free of charge to this country, and it is to the tune of $12 million US. It is believed that the pandemic could worsen in Africa, and the problem is that most of our health systems are weak. So we thought this is an opportunity to strengthen our health systems so that they are robust enough to deal with the COVID pandemic as well as the thereafter. Projections. At the beginning of the pandemic in the Gambia, the projections on the disease were that it will have we will have a total of 181,000 infections at the peak, and we'll be having 3,300 per day. But with social distancing, we were expecting 53,000 infections, and that's at the peak, and 1,000 infections per day. This was a similar projection by the WHO and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Now, there was another projection by the Policy Analysis Unit of the President's Office, which showed 74 to 93% of the population might be affected. The peak was initially expected on the 17th May 2020. However, it will interest the honorable members to know that, in fact, the picture is gloomier. The new projections have been made based on new data and the spread of the disease so far in the African countries and what we have learned about the disease so far. It is now projected that without any social distancing, we are now expecting a total of 300,000 cases in a period of 300 days. That is, it spreads, that's the estimate for the 1 year. But when it peaks, we expect to have 3,000 cases per day, and at the peak, there will be 10,000 active cases in this country. But with strict social distancing, with the assumption that there will be reduction in contact by 50%, we would expect a total of 1,600 cases in 300 days. So see the drastic reduction from 300,000 to 1,600 with strict social distancing. And a total of 30 active cases per day at the peak, and we would expect 6 to 7 new cases to be registered per day, adding on to the total number of active cases, of course, while some are withdrawn from the total number of active cases because they would have recovered. The peak expected again, now from the projections, we are saying from the first case without social distancing, the peak would be on the 25th. Now, with some social distancing, we expect the new peak to be around the 24th of June 2020. This shows that most likely the initial social distancing observed by the population has shown dividend, as the peak has moved from its original date of 17th May. This will allow a flattened curve and allow care of the patients, and the patients hope to get better with this when the curve is flattened rather than spiking up. Staff protection. Madam Speaker, distinguished honorable members, as we speak, we have adequate number of face masks, gloves, goggles, shields, shoe covers, overalls for the people who work in the health facilities. Yes, we agree, sometimes there are logistic challenges, and sometimes the slow flow of information. And sometimes people taking ownership is lacking. When these items are finished at some sites, they fold their arms and expect them to be flown to them, rather than being proactive to make the request before it even gets finished. This is the typical attitude. So I'm not surprised that you went to some centers, they say we don't have. And the question to them is, what did you do when you didn't have? Because I'm informing you that we have enough of these items for the protection of our staff. Equally speaking, We equally have been supplying the security forces. It was not in a very well coordinated manner initially, because they used to give to one person who was supposed to deliver it. But we realized that there were logistic challenges, and the Interior Minister promised to identify a focal point who will do the collection and get it to all the people, and he has done that now. So that will also be lessened now. Staff honoraria. The issue of the staff honoraria is yet to be finalized. Distinguished Speaker, distinguished National Assembly members, COVID-19 period is a very difficult period for everybody in the world, for all of us, especially in developing countries. It is very tasking for the population, but more so for the health workers. I will tell you, and more so for the health ministers, but I think it is most difficult for the health minister of the Republic of the Gambia, because the Gambia is a special case. So instead of us to deal with the response to COVID-19, strategizing, develop the policies, we deal with allowances and the allowance list and this and that and that. The Gambia is unique in the sense that things that ministers are not supposed to be dealing with just come to the bear, and if you don't deal with it, there is disaster. So you end up having to deal with that. This allowance issue is very unfortunate. Government came up with the idea that, and as we've been saying ever since, no one can ever pay health workers enough, especially frontline health workers. When people are sleeping, when people are doing other things, when people are enjoying, celebrating, these frontliners are at front there, risking their lives to provide health care for our people. But government said, let's give them honoraria, just a token to say thank you very much. Now, this honoraria, we said, provide us with the list of the people who are at the front line. Unfortunately, especially when the 500 million was announced, that's when our problem as a health ministry started. Unfortunately, people start to even forget about COVID. All they talk about is money, money, money. That's why I said our work is very, very difficult. Now, we say provide the list. When we talk about these things, it is not the majority, it's just in the minority that do some of these things. The majority are hardworking, dedicated, sacrificing their lives for the people of this country. Now, that minority provided a list. In fact, when you look at the list and the estimates, it consumed almost the entire $500 million for allowances. That was the suggestion. Of course, we wouldn't accept that. We said to them, it's a non-starter. It went back. They brought another list. That list was so big. We say, where are these people? I said, okay, if this list is big, bring it, let us have a look. We looked at the list. There were names of over 300 volunteers. Nobody knows where those volunteers. That means they are not working in the health sector, so if they are volunteers. Now that also went. We said non-starter again. Remove all the volunteers. Bring a list of the core people. The list of the core people was brought. Some people came together to say, we know the people who are the active players. That list came. We saw names appearing in one section and another and another and another. Then I said, no again. Took the list back. Then we went to Kotu, that's where our central operations are. That day, as health minister, I stayed with the team to project, because we wanted to give some of them something, because you all had their complaints. It was difficult for them. Sometimes they leave home early, they don't go home early. So we said, let's mobilize quickly to give them something. But we need a list. Now, we looked at the list. They projected the names till 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't think any health minister does that in the world. That's not my responsibility. But if I don't do that, what will follow is disaster. Now, we looked at it. As we looked at it, we realized that there were various duplications. That night alone, 300 names were removed. Why were they removed? Because you will see some names at some point, and so many names. Then we say, okay, you have the team leaders here. Team this, team that, team this. When we project it, if these are in your team, you say yes because you know them. Look at your own list. But you also equally take responsibility because you are here and you say these are, oh, then you start saying, I don't know that one. I've never seen this one. Who put this name? Now, this is what we do. So we went down there. I say, since there are various groups, let us now arrange them alphabetically. So that when the groups are there, you arrange the groups you arrange all the names, ignoring the groups alphabetically. Then you see one name 3 times, 4 times, 6 times. Then we had to remove it. These are the challenges that we faced. Now, when we streamlined the list, we now said each one should get paid 5,000 honorarium. When that was met, they started. Then some started saying they were not involved, these ones are not involved. But the initial one was to pay the frontliners first. And the frontliner definition was those who were in the contact tracing, the surveillance, the laboratory, the case management team, and just in the health facilities, case management team, the people at the accident and emergency wards, and the people who are also at the outpatient units, because accident and emergency and outpatient are the people who receive any patient coming into a health facility. When they come and they suspect COVID, they alert the case management team in that facility. So these we regarded as frontliners. Now, so this is what delayed the list. Now we said compile the list now. Some payments started, but that was a limited number. That is why the others couldn't get paid. Because now they started wrangling, and some people from some facilities were putting in their friends, their relatives, to be in that frontliner. So even to get those frontliners. But we said, let's get the frontliners paid first, so that the rest of the people will also get paid. Probably a little less, because we have to stratify. Because if we don't stratify, the person who goes to take a sample from a patient, he's more at risk. But a person who is sitting down in the health facility is also at some risk. But you cannot compare them with this. If you make it flat, the person who goes to follow the patients will be complaining. He will say, oh, I'm risking my life, and look at it, this one is sitting at this place. And so we said it's important to stratify. Now, the nurses came up. Unfortunately, some of the people were also on the media talking and so on without engagement. But we had a very positive engagement, because when the goals are the same, there's no need to quarrel. So when we brought them, one very smart, honest young nurse, when we said to them, okay, you go and see your people who have not been paid and they have complaints, jot their names down and come. Then he came and told me, Honorable, I was shocked. When I went now, because there's going to be stratification, now everybody in any facility now is moving to work at the emergency room. Because now emergency room people are going to be paid more. So we are seeing names that were ordinarily posted in other parts of the hospital, all now being added to emergency room. So this is a nightmare we're having with the allowances, but the willingness is there. In fact, I myself was the one following them to produce this list 4 weeks ago. Now, why are we having some of these problems? Honorable members, distinguished honorable members, distinguished speaker, I think we inherited a bad system. That's the bottom line. Some of the things, the same old people are still there. They got used to this bad system of doing things. We talk about the Ebola. Unfortunately, Ebola funds were wasted in this country. And that's what they want to do with this. And we say no. That's why some of them are up and against. The Ebola funds were wasted here. What that would have done, today our health system wouldn't have been like this. But equipment was said to have been procured which never got to this country. Nobody sees them. Allowances were put together. Then the allowances were being given as interest. I learned. I was not there then, but they were being given as interest. And people held this interest in bags, and they go and pay selected people, and the rest only they and God knows where the rest went to. Some people were left as response teams that time for 3 months, and they never got paid a dime. And they are still here. If you investigate, you'll get to know. Now, why are we saying this? Because the same people are still there. Now they don't have that access, and they are sabotaging our system. For them, things should not work. To them, things should fail. To them, things should not work, irrespective, because they don't have their way to get access to these funds. This is the frustration, I must tell you, I am facing as health minister in this country. That's why I say this country, being a health minister this COVID time, is probably the most difficult work. They go to the media and make allegations without verifying. They hear 1 or 2 things, not knowing what the story is about. They go and fabricate. Instead of us to concentrate on the work to defeat COVID, we have to now debunk their lies so that the people know what the truth is. We have a bad system where we have people, middle-level people, who have been spending monies in here, building homes that 3, 4, 5 big-story buildings in town in this ministry, they are there. We have people who go around to border points because they position people there to be collecting little fees from them every weekend. Now we remove those people. We said, no, you are not good for the health sector. You are not good for those places. They are very angry because to them, Dr. Samate came to destroy their way of life. So they are up in arms and doing all kinds of havoc, undermining us because they have grievances. Now, I'll give you an example, a very sad example. If a former minister could call a program manager as recent as 2-3 weeks ago to say to him to send him fuel coupons, then we have a problem in this country. So that means when those people were there, what would they have done when they were in charge of those resources? Now that they are not even there, they are saying, program manager, do you have fuel coupons to send to me? So this is the reality in our country, and it is sad. So this is why we have a big battle to do. So, but the allowance payment is ongoing, and we are certifying. We've brought them all so that we go around to see how soon they can be paid. Thank you. When it comes to intersectoral collaboration, we're collaborating with the police, we're collaborating with the security forces, the Ministry of Defense, and all other parties. It had been difficult initially, but the Cabinet Subcommittee has brought us all together, and that has been helping us very well. Now, there's also the appointment of a COVID-19 response coordinator, one gentleman, Mr. Sengol, whose role is to coordinate these activities so that when the security forces need something, it goes through him and he knows who to contact. If they need protective gear, he knows who to contact so that they facilitate that. We believe that is essential. Training. Training has been ongoing in all the regions. It is still ongoing. There is still a lot to cover with regards to what to do. Most of the frontliners have been trained now, but we're training all the other people, the community health workers equally, and the partners are helping very well in the coordination of the training. Madam Speaker, distinguished National Assembly members, the COVID-19 pandemic is real. It is of great concern in the Gambia. I think sometimes when Allah helps people, or when their efforts are yielding results, then they become complacent. They think, after all, even if we didn't do anything, it would have been like this. I think that's what we are having in the Gambia. Because if we don't pray for that, but if people were dying in communities, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, probably we will say, hey, this is real. But we don't want to see that. We certainly do not want to see that. We appeal, and I add my voice to the Justice Minister to appeal. You have the authority, you have the power to support government to make this our collective fight a success. The people of this country look up to you, and we certainly look up to you to give us, I would still have said the 90 days, but we leave it to you because we remember what I initially said was probably a lockdown. These new cases we got, if at all we had robust systems, if people were abiding, probably they wouldn't have suffered. But we are very concerned because COVID is now in the community. When it will blow up, it will explode, we don't know, but we sincerely appeal to give this a strong consideration. I hope in the speech I was able to answer the questions of most people, lumped together though, but if there's any, then we'll be willing to answer. Once again, I thank you for your indulgence. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister, may I now put the question, honorable members? It has been moved and seconded at this honorable assembly. We've already taken that. Oh, that was already done. Very well. We now take the interventions, and the honorable member who wishes to take part may do so. I think the table office already had a list. But please, I am appealing. This is Ramadan, and we did not expect that we would be sitting today, Saturday, and we have a big challenge with regards to catering. Sorry, the microphone is on. Thank you. As a result, we could not get in touch with the caterer to provide the iftar. So please, I am appealing to honorable members. Yesterday, we had ample opportunity, and today, to make our interventions, our concerns known to the authorities vis-à-vis the issue of the extension and the regulations. So please, let us not repeat what has already been said. Let us bring up new issues, be concise, to the point, and then we'll take a decision. I'm just appealing. I don't have the powers to stop anybody. I'm not even attempting to do that. But let us be just reasonable, taking into consideration what has transpired yesterday and today up till 4:15. Please, I am appealing. So now I take the list. So can we, just let me have your tag, see your tag so that I just compare my list. Let's see. Yes, yes, yes. Jara Central was on your list, yes.
I know that, so that time.
Yes. Or do we agree on limiting the time? Yes, let's give how many minutes each? 2. No, let me be fair. Let me allow the vice chair of the chair of the Standing Orders Committee to propose, table a motion, move a motion, giving us time.
Well, Honorable Speaker, I move that we speak for 3 minutes per person.
Sorry, any seconder? Yes. Sorry. Any seconder? Yes, Honorable Minority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I write to second the motion.
Counter motion, Madam Speaker.
Motion, vote against it. It's as simple as that. Yes. nowhere in the standing orders. Just vote against it if you disagree. It has been moved and seconded that we allow honorable members to speak for 3 minutes. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. So at least I think that will give us enough time to. Yes, honorable member for Jara Central.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also talk on the motion that is before us, which is to adjust or to extend the state of public emergency to another 45 days.
Just by way of guiding,
yeah.
The preamble will take up your time.
Exactly.
So just go to the point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I strongly support the motion because by going through the information given to us by the Honorable Minister for Health, from 3,000 per day at peak, without social distancing, and to 1,600 per day at peak with observing social distancing. Honorable Speaker, you can see the variations, the large variations in between these two numbers. So this, Honorable Speaker, would tell you that it is very obvious that we need to extend the state of public emergency so as to maintain the social distancing and also to go by the recommendations of the WHO and the health authorities of the Gambia. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I would like to take my seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member for Basse.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Let me refer members to page 5 of the motion. So the last paragraph. So in order to enable the government continue to provide effective leadership in these national preventive efforts, the government must, but given a margin of appreciation in deciding the measures it wishes to adopt, the duration and the timing. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to put emphasis here on duration and timing by giving my support for 45 days for a reason. As National Assembly members, we shouldn't be afraid to give 45 days because other sections of the Constitution has given us the power that if you analyze the situation is not normal, we have the power to revoke the duration that we have given to them. So therefore, I would like to urge members that we go for 45 days. And secondly, Honorable Speaker, I want the Honorable Minister to consider these observations when responding in our recommendations. And
1 more minute as per your motion.
Okay, anyway, let me not go into that because I have so many observations. I support the motion for 45 days. Thank you.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Let me also join my colleague to thank the Minister of Justice for presenting this motion to extend the motion of public emergency for 45 days. Honorable Speaker, there is no doubt the issue of 45 days, the issue of 90 days does not matter much. We are living in a very serious situation. And I think government is coming with these ideas, definitely to protect the people, but not to punish anybody. Honorable Speaker, I just want to make, because during the debate, people are trying to compare the issue of Lumo and market. You see, all the lumos in this country, where you have all the lumos in this country, they are at the border. You can start naming them from here up to the other end. They are either close to the border. They are either close to the border, starting from here. All the villages and towns that are having lumos, they are very close to the Senegalese border. Or else, if the lumo is happening in Senegal, the village is very close to Gambia. So you can name all of them. So opening these lumos, you are definitely invited cross businessmen to come from Senegal and from Gambia, combined together. So we must be very careful with the lumos. Kerpate, Kawul, Wasu, Sarengay, Jaren, Brikamba, all these towns are very close to the border in Senegal. If
1 minute, Lumo.
Doesn't mean that Senegal is coming. Honorable Speaker, you are giving, okay, I give myself 1 minute, no problem. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the rate this infection is going, it's definitely alarming. I just have some figures here yesterday. Worldwide, 4,368,631. Today, 4,483,864. That's 115,000 increment. You look at the dead, these are the ones which are affected. The dead, 303,825, 298,664, 5,100 almost every day. So this, Honorable Speaker, this situation is very alarming. On that note, Honorable, my colleagues, please let us listen to our experts who are the executive. Whatever they bring us to us here, it is to the interest of the nation. I don't think it will be a detriment to the Gambian people. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Nyani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. A lot has been said. For my case is, yes, let's stop the lumos. It's quite well for people to do the lumos because they are at the borders. But why not we have an internal market, that is the lumos, so that they can able to protect the borders. Then we can able to do our business internal. Because if you can see at the market, such like Brikama or Serakunda, the population in the market is more than the lumos. So I think why not we just consider only the internal business in various lumo sites. Secondly, my take is that why not still now about the prayers, we still leave the mosque so that they can do their prayers because the time factor is just too small. So on that note, for the number of days, that is not important. We can go to 45, but here our problem also, as the minister said, the testing site, the isolation site is not within my constituency, like here, Same Nyani area. And going to Bansang or Kauru is very far. Looking at Janjambura crossing ferry, it will take you by 8 o'clock, you cannot cross until 12 o'clock. After 12, you will not cross until 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the distance is. And the ferry, if it doesn't have more than 5 or 6 vehicles, it cannot cross. So my people always have a problem in the ambulance when they are going to Bansang Hospital. So for that note, let the minister consider the testing or the isolation center in our area because in the report there is no isolation center. And going to Bansang is always a problem. If they don't able to cross at the ferries, they have to go up to Bansang. At the end, they will go there, they say the ferry is not working. So on that note, I have no objection with the 45, but let's think over the mosque and other trade.
Thank you very much. Sami.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We all want to protect our people. There is nobody who don't want his people to be protected. Honorable Speaker, the regulation, I have concern for the regulation, particularly the markets. How can the markets here be open and the rural areas? Let us strengthen our borders internally. Let us do that so that our people also can go to the market, can go to the lumos and solve their problems. But we cannot allow this. Here the market operates and the rural areas, they are not observing any markets. Honorable Speaker, that is not fair. Let us observe that. And the prayers time also, let us open the mosque and strategize. Let us try and do that. With correct regulations, people will be able to go and pray. Let us do that, Honorable Speaker. Yeah, that's what I want to say, because most have been said. But the lumos and the mosques, let us open them with strict, control. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Banjul South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Like I always say, I will always support the extension of a state of an emergency, provided that the regulations are very strict and they look after not only the health issues, but also the livelihood of our citizens. But Madam Speaker, we approved the initial state of emergency nearly 45 days ago. That was to give the government the time to lay the grounds in preparation of coping this COVID-19. But Madam Speaker, all I have seen, to be honest with you, is unnecessary expenditure by this government. Madam Speaker, I will give, for example, hotel accommodation. In the initial 500 million that was given, hotel accommodation alone accounted for 34.6%, which was up to $14 million, Madam Speaker. That is exorbitantly high and unnecessary. Madam Speaker, what I was expecting was to see medical and hospital expenditure, which was only 352,000 compared to 14 million in hotel accommodation and 5.5 million in allowances. Madam Speaker, how can you pay for that amount in hotel accommodation and in allowances and not cater for medical and other specialist expenditure? I think if we are saying that we are trying to curb COVID-19, Madam Speaker, we need to look at the livelihood and the health aspects. Madam Speaker, why are we concentrating on quarantine? Why are we concentrating on hotels? Are we making money out of it? Because for me right now, it is the time to take care of our people and to ensure that their livelihood, they are alive and well, Madam Speaker.
You have 1 moment.
Okay. Madam Speaker, like I said, I will support the 45 days request, but we need to ensure that, Madam Speaker, they take care of our people. I would even support a total lockdown, Madam Speaker, but provided that they stop this unnecessary expenditure and are accountable and transparent to the Gambians. Thank you.
Very much. Honorable Member for Nyanija.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. And then I just want to emphasize, this is an issue of health. Let us listen to the expert advice. If it was finance, if it was security or whatever, we listen to those. Please let us listen to the respect and listen to the expert advice. If not, we will run into trouble. That's my honest opinion and my advice. Let us listen to the advice from the Ministry of Health and adhere to it. They are here to help us. They are our brothers and sisters, for God and heaven's sake. But also members are speaking like this is something which they have an expert on. Please. Sorry. Okay, Honorable Speaker, just to emphasize on the importance of the state of public emergency, this is just to give a room for the implementation of the state of the regulations. If not, no need for that. If there is no state of emergency, we cannot implement any regulation. And these regulations are in accordance with this, the expert advice, as I said. Let us give them that room so that we can implement this and protect our population and everybody. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member for Lower Saloon.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. My intervention will not be. My intervention will go to the media personnel, because yesterday I have been looking to QTV yesterday. I saw on their publication that National Assembly they adopt 45 days, which was not even laid by the Honorable Minister yesterday. You know, giving out false information, they will also trigger the citizens down there into be more afraid on the issue that is on false information. Please let them also be mindful, because people are listening to them. The entire citizen cannot come to the parliament here. They are the ones who get the chance to come here. When you give discriminating information, they give accurate information and correct information for that matter. Thank you very much.
You were not here the last time, but you were on the list, and together with Honorable Member for Fonyi Brevet. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let us remind ourselves that the focus is how to contain the spread of COVID-19. And going by the Honorable Minister's presentation suggests we have a serious threat at hand. Therefore, it is important that we preach what we believe and believe in what we preach. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, I therefore support the extension for a further 45 days to allow the executive to do the necessary arrangements, and then please let them make sure they act quickly and let them ensure the proper and efficient implementation of the regulations to serve the interests of the populace.
Honorable Member for Ilyasa.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I asked me personally, I didn't support this 45 days. And I am warning, if the Assembly has agreed to have the 45 days, on Thursday I'll go to my provinces and I'll send my people to start praying. Because you can't be sitting down in this National Assembly almost about 90 days without praying at the mosque.
Point of order.
I'm not speaking, I'm not giving you any point of order. I'm not giving you any chance. You better sit down. You better close your mouth. I'm not doing anything. On Thursday, I'll be going to provinces. On Thursday, I'll be going to provinces, start campaigning, let people start praying at their mosque. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Bundung-Kakunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Sorry, may I just appeal? I observed that honorable members are just leaving the chambers after making their interventions. Please let us ensure that we stay and take a vote. If we are asking outsiders to stay, strangers, we should lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for giving me the chance. Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before I heard from the Minister of Health, my position was not to go in for any extension. But hearing from Honorable Minister of Health, I think I will change my position slightly. Honorable Speaker, we are going in this state of public emergency for a purpose, to safeguard our people. There is another side of the coin that we should always look at. If we are putting this, coming with regulation, is to help our people. But if the regulations, if the COVID is not killing people, and the regulation are affecting people, then we need to look at it properly. If the livelihood of people are cut off, and even if they are sick, they cannot go to the hospital to pay for their medical expenses, they are dying, and COVID is not killing them, then that side also needs to be looked at. That is my position. Because that was not the case. So now I think the executive need to come up with a comprehensive regulation that will look into these two sides, so that all what we are saying is to safeguard our people, to make sure that they will not die. This is why we are here. This is why we are making these laws. This is why we want to extend. And to extend it to 45 days, I still think that is too much. That is my position. Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, I want to observe. Please, I want to observe.
Asked for, you should have made the observation whilst he was on his leg, and then he would have allowed you or disallowed you.
I'm
but
sorry.
Without that, it's a point of order.
It's about the parliament. The member for Ilyasa informed us by Thursday he is going around the country informing people, go and pray in the mosque, which is contradicting what we are doing here. So it's a statement made in the parliament. If at all we agree with him, yes. If at all we don't agree with him, let him withdraw the statement from the floor of the parliament.
I have a right. I have a right to voice my opinion, and you have not to condemn me.
Exercise decorum. Order, please. Honorable Member for Ilyasa, can you please take your seat? We're not quarreling. We're not enemies here. Please, let's be polite in our discourse. Let's exercise decorum. We are asking for decorum. It should start with us. Please. Thank you. Honorable Member for Sandu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, definitely I have an issue with the restriction of public transportation emergency powers. That is, if you look at the public transport number 5, the rider of a motor bicycle. So still now I have an issue with this. I don't know how the Justice Minister, together with Interior, can help our people. Because you cannot ascertain in a community where there is no nurse, and if the person is sick, the person needs to be transported from that community to maybe Basse or Diabubu. Still now police officers will be on the way chasing them. So definitely we have an issue with this. So I don't know how they can help us with this. And also, Honorable Speaker, the Lumos issue, definitely it's true that we definitely observe social distancing. But also, the people, the move of the Muslim states, the government intention is to provide adequate food. But we know, again, there's 84% of the population who benefit from what they have just provided. And yet still some communities did not even receive. So it's also another issue. For left to me alone, definitely I will only approve between 0 and 14 days.
Honorable Member for Birkama North. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I indicated, this time around, I will be dilating on the regulations. I recommended that the extension is necessary based on reviewing the regulation and recommend for necessary amendment to the Minister. I will begin with the restriction on open markets and shopping areas. The Minister did justice to inform us to the extent of the implementation of the regulations. To some extent, we have some shortcomings, but to some, there have been implementation as he indicated. Now, on this particular regulation, there has been amendment. However, the issue of social distancing in the markets, yes, that is essential, but the enforcement of that, and then the person trading in food products in any market shall serve one customer at a time, that is lacking in the markets. I will not recommend for the amendment of that particular regulation, but the enforcement to be very much strengthened. And then on the timing for the opening of the markets for the food sellers from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then for the others from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. What I observed, most Gambians don't go to the market at 6 a.m. Usually, the rush hour is between 9 to 10 to 1 p.m. That means the people are compelled to rush at the market, and that created the room for congestion at the market. Instead of to decongest, it should be better we open the market. Let's say the market can be opened from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. generally. Let the market be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. What makes the market to be congested are those small traders who usually don't have stalls. They squat anywhere in the market. They can be relocated to a field so that the stall can be open and then the people can now no longer be congested in the market. But the timing creates the people to rush, and then they rush, there is congestion in the market. What we are after, as far as the regulations are concerned, is to create a social distancing. But this is not assuring the social distancing. Let's open the market generally from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and relocate other stores that are temporary stores to a safe place so that they can also create room for the market not to be decongested. That's the recommendation I will make on that. And then the other one, we are about to face one tail as far as Tobaski is concerned, and that has to be taken into consideration. Korite is concerned. Usually, the market is decongested because of the one tail. Now, in order to avert that, temple market can be created for the one tail to take place instead of at the original market as at now, because they have started the one tail and then the congestion is still there. The next regulation will be...
I think your time is up, Honorable.
Allow me on the regulation.
No, everybody would say allow me. No.
Then one more.
No, please, Honorable, your time is up. No, please, your time is up. Honorable Member for Central Badibu. Central Badibu, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Let's be fair.
Madam Speaker, the nation is at crisis, and I, for one, am not supporting the motion, and my reasons are as follows. The 45 days of state of emergency that we have declared here, if you look at the assessment, caused great loss to the economy of this country. We need resources. We don't have anything. If we continue with this state of emergency, how do you expect government and private sector to make money? Madam Speaker, the second point is unemployment. How many people are laid off because of the emergency? So if you should continue for 45 days, how do you expect those people to make survival? Madam Speaker, if we are not careful, it could lead to social unrest, because the way and the manner the vendors or people who sell at the market are treated, there could be a kind of a social unrest if the matter is not managed well. Because women were arrested in Farafenni, taken to the police station, and they were mishandled. This is an information that I want you to understand. The other point is, how many people are under stress right now? They are not mentally okay, they are in house because of this COVID. The stress is getting higher and higher every day. How many people are not going to the hospital because of COVID-19? Do you understand? So, Madam Speaker, I'm not in for it, and I have my other recommendations that I want the government to consider. That is to provide kits for the frontliners and to ensure that their balance allowance is paid. The frontliners. The second recommendation that I want us to do is let the institution and the families to continue to promote hand washing and the use of sanitizers. And I think, it's wrong to say Gambians are not respecting the laws, Gambians are not responding. If you go to every house or every home, people put buckets there to wash their hands. So it's the manner and the way we communicate to them. So it's wrong, all the time we are blaming Gambians and particularly youths. Madam Speaker, furthermore, voluntary testing should be promoted and it should be decentralized in the whole country. Madam Speaker, the other one is timely delivery of the relief package. That's another thing. People are hungry. It's survival versus sickness. Madam Speaker, to put money for construction of storage facilities, barns and silos, vegetable growers, they need it. And women's vegetables need to be bought. Must be open. Madam Speaker, I'm not in for the motion. That's my contribution.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Honorable Member for Kantora.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. People need to understand that we are not in a...
Sorry, Honorable Busumbala, the list is here. Almost everybody is there, but we all cannot speak at the same time. We have to take our turns. Kantora.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. People need to understand that we are in a very unusual situation. Even going by the acronym, this state of public emergency, it shows that business is not as usual. We are faced as a nation with an unforeseen circumstances. Therefore, need a special approach to adequately address this pandemic. And members also should know that it's against the standing orders to impose motives. If you are religion, you can keep it to yourself. Nobody is actually canvassing or advocating that people should not go and pray or mosques should be closed permanently. I did reiterate that if there is possibility for further engagement with the Supreme Islamic Council and the Christian fraternity to see how best they could come in terms of giving a recommendation on distancing themselves within their mosques and churches, that could be adopted. However, it's really unfair to impose motive as if we are not Christians or we are not Muslims. So it's very improper for one to impose motive. However, I think I want to refer the House to the transport emergency to allay the fear of my honourable member on the restriction on motorcycle. It went further that said that a rider of a motorcycle shall not carry any passenger on his or her motorbike, except in case of health emergencies. So there is a reservation, a savings there, that on these circumstances, you could be allowed to do that. And I also want to stand very much to make sure that I support the 45 days, knowing fully the highly contagiousness of this virus, and knowing fully that the country did not really reach at its peak period. So therefore, we should not be too much complacent and then do otherwise. I want to seize the opportunity to thank and also sympathize with the Health Minister. What is going on is really unfortunate, but we stand resolute behind him to make sure that we all fight this cause together. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you very much. Busumbala.
Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. Madam Speaker, I give my support to 45 days based on some points that I want to put across. Madam Speaker, the past 45 days, the problem was enforcement and adherence to the regulations. This was our problem. So I am going to give the suggestion to the government. Because people believe that, as we said, some believe that this does not exist. Some find it very difficult to observe social distancing. And then bottom line to that is the low rate of sensitization. I want the government to involve every stakeholder, be the politicians, be the youth leaders, be the decision makers in the communities, to engage them and have discussion with them so that all of us can have a say in sensitizing our people. Madam Speaker, I want to go to the regulation of closing of schools. Yesterday I said it here, I want to repeat it again. Until I give a scenario. Education is just like a step. A step has to go, another step comes in. As the case is now, the education sector is finding it very difficult because if nothing is done, next year is going to be so congested that ones in the houses cannot have space in the school. So I want to suggest if the regulation could be revised to allow the grade 9s, that are the peak transitional class of this education system, to come to school, and then they have more ample time, more ample space. There they can observe social distancing and have their lessons so that they can sit to their grade 9 exams, and then they could be able to transit to grade 10, and grade 12 too could also be transit to colleges and high schools. And also a mosque. We've done consultation. Greater percentage of Gambians are not against the state of emergency because it's clear to them that state of emergency is not a lockdown. So it's just giving the power to the government to come up with regulations and policies at the time to respond to emergencies. So, but their problem now is greater percent is the closure of mosque. I want to suggest, because that's the report we get from the people, if it is possible, you also revise.
1 minute more.
Yes, in that you involve these people to open mosque and then to observe social distancing in mosque and give them time. You know, the calling of prayers and the like, if you involve them, they will give you ideas how best the mosque could be open and then this social distancing could be observed in it. Madam Speaker, my last point, so my honorable colleague mentioned it here, dissemination of wrong information is one problem of this COVID-19. I think the media personnel should help us very keenly to be able to disseminate factual information about anything about COVID-19. It's a problem, it's disheartening. Some radios are broadcasting wrong information about COVID-19 and then case to Honorable Minister. My last point will be that I want to feel with you and we are with you.
Thank you.
Gambians know, the genuine Gambians know what you are doing, but others will talk bad against you. Please do your job.
Can we respect the chair, please? Your time is up. Thank
this
you.
This is not
Honorable
fair.
Member for Serekunda West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Extension without enforcement of regulations is only increasing hardship on our people. I will not, and I have not, and I will never ever support any extension without proper regulations. What is happening now is our market vendors are suffering, our commuters are suffering, our religious peoples are suffering. I object totally to the extension because the last 45 days was not put to best use. The first 45 days was given with scrutiny. Unfortunately, whether fortunate or unfortunately, our special cell committee was given chance to do that. They have come with a report. They have come with very good information and more information. And they recommended 21 days. Even that 21 days is not, I don't accept it. Much more 45 days. We are putting this country into more problems because the fact is that COVID-19 is a reality. But the measures that we are taking are not proper measures because we are not enforcing the regulations. State of emergency goes with regulations. If you have your state of emergency, you cannot regulate, then it's meaningless. Thank you.
Honorable Member for Birkama Tumana. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I think I am not also going to support. Or if I'm going to support, I will support 21 days, but not 45 days. And again, I am also asking this Parliament to make sure that we allow the people to use their masajids to go and pray, because the minimum number of people that is needed to perform a Juma prayer, according to some Islamic teachings, is 3 people. So if if people are grouped in markets doing their normal businesses in the market, so why not we allow the people to also go to the mosque to do their Juma prayers? And again, looking at the essential commodities emergency power regulation 2020, I want to say this again. You have the list of items or the price ceilings for essential commodities: rice, sugar, chicken, whole chicken, eggs, meat, and stuff like that. So the price attached to them, I want the minister to look into that, to make sure that the price, looking at the amount of fuel that has now dropped down, so that they also look at the price too. It should have reflect on the price too. And the other thing is that is the lumos. I mean, we have a state of emergency, and right now all the borders are closed. So we make sure that let the police be there, but make sure that the people go and use their lumos. I mean, they cannot have their produce in their hands. They are perishable goods. So if they cannot go to the lumos and sell these goods, how are they going to sell them? Or is the government going to pay for those produce? So let us look into that dimension. Otherwise, the people that produce these goods, their time, their energy, and their resources, it's just everything will just go in vain like that.
Minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I think, let me just stop here. The other ones, I will leave them.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Serekunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We are told that measures must be reasonably justifiable to deal with COVID-19. That's why we are here. Honorable Speaker, it is very clear from the Minister that accountability is a problem and he needs to be assisted. And that is precisely why this special project account must be properly governed by the very provisions that exist in the Public Finance Act. So the minister should be reminded of Section 36, should be reminded of Section 34, should be reminded of Section 8. The minister has all the powers, all the level of building of that Directorate of Internal Audit to ensure that really procurements are done in the right way and all ministries are properly supervised. If need be, these accounts would be put under strict scrutiny. We would not want to see again this type of scenario where they'll come to us and talk about their relation with IMF. This is a long-standing relation. We would want, if we extend, and we should extend, the responsibilities of our committee so that we know exactly the relationship between the IMF, the World Bank, and the Gambia government. Honorable Speaker, the issue of COVID-19 is about the health sector building up its whole architecture. And I've heard it, but the actual process of screening, the actual process of observatory being established, and the actual process of actually treatment, this should be integrated. The next time we want an integrated presentation of what is done, how much has been spent, how many people are being catered for. It is absolutely essential that we have this in our face in order to know what we have achieved. The past 45 days, we don't know what we have really achieved. It's scattered, it's there. We have to search for it. Next time, they should come and tell us concretely how much they have spent, how much are they getting, what issues, challenges are they facing. Honorable Speaker, the issue of 100,000 people being laid down out of work, what do we do with them? That needs to come in. 32 million spent in the hotels. Is that really sustainable in terms of the observatory or the quarantine? So it means that monies are being spent.
You have 1 more minute, Honorable.
Yes, monies are being spent and they need to ensure sustainability. Funds will not continue to come. We're expecting a lot from the outside. We're not collecting much revenue. The exportation is down. Where are the funds going to come from? We need to really look at this system and ensure that we have a sustainable system. Honorable Speaker,
you have exhausted
my last word, Honorable Speaker, is that
I think if we allow everybody additional
No, it's not allowed.
We'll
It's just the regulation on this mosque.
Well,
restriction.
You had a choice to arrange yourself.
Yeah, restriction of public.
No, sorry,
public
your time is up. Thank
in
you.
the mosque. It's better to put it
Thank
on closure.
you.
Please remove that closure.
Thank you,
and put
Honorable Member for Salum. Upper Salum. No. Thank you, Jimara.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Yesterday I talked about this Lumos issue, and I will still continue appealing to my honorable colleague. Let us make sure that these Lumos are reopened. For me, without opening these Lumos, I will not be part of the members to approve these 45 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable nominated member, Jete. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I just wanted to make a statement on what the Minister of Justice said about how far they have gone or what efforts they have done in relation to the implementation of the regulations. He mentioned that when it comes to the essential commodities regulations, everyone can see that that is being implemented, the closure of the public places that is being implemented. But I just want to draw his attention to the fact that the most important aspect of this fight against COVID-19 is the social distancing. And if we say the Essential Commodities Act is being implemented and the social distancing in the market is not being implemented, it all goes to vain. Because if we close the schools, our kids are not going to school, but I am going to the market and I can contract this virus from the market and come back and give it to the people I live with, it does not make sense. That is why it is very important for us to try to implement the regulations dealing with the markets so so that we can guarantee the social distancing. And this government, the executive had 45 days to do so. They had 45 days to decongest the market, or at least have a plan on what to do with the crowding in the market. And nothing has been done. So I understand very well, if I was basing my decision whether to allow for an extension or not just on their implementation, I would have said no. But I know it is necessary that we have these regulations ongoing so we can curb the spread of the virus. That's why we are saying we give them 21 days. And in these 21 days, now they have the opportunity again to do what they are supposed to do so we can review and decide whether to extend. The 21 days will give us an opportunity to put them to task to make sure they do this. If we give them an open 45 days, we'll come back to the same thing. They can just sit and relax. The second thing is the compensation.
You have 1 more minute.
The compensation is I've engaged the minister, and it's important that we have a regulation dealing with compensation which will contain the criteria of which businesses are going to be compensated, which employers or employees are going to be compensated. It is very important. If we had that, we wouldn't be having the problem the Ministry of Health is having. There must be a criteria on who and when we should compensate.
Thank you very much, Ma. To me, information is power. You know, for me, I was somehow skeptical, and I was in a dilemma when we were saying that extension, because for me, what I saw in the markets, and sometimes in some mosques, because they will call for prayers and people will go in. But despite that, there was this bucket for people to wash their hands. I think washing their hands is really going on. My problem is social distancing. And if we are saying social distancing is from the markets and even in the mosques, I think mechanisms should be put in place. We meet the imams, talk to the mosque committees, to let them know that this is an issue. This has never happened. This is a state of public emergency. It has never happened. Anything can happen to anybody, God forbid. And it is really affecting the whole world. When I was listening to BBC and I heard some people crying that their corpses, they cannot access to their corpses because of COVID-19, that is the time that I am always have concern with this virus. Fellow National Assembly members, let us make sure that putting fuel to fire adds more fire. And that being the case, we should try by all means to make sure that, well, sorry for saying that two wrongs cannot be right. If we say we are not supporting it and the virus spreads, what legacy are we leaving behind? I think these are issues that we really have to put on board. It is true. We are saying that these things that have put in, that is the regulations. Let us try by all means to make sure that we talk about, we are all National Assembly members. People are calling us, telling us their problems. Whatever happens, we can meet the ministers and talk to them. We can meet the executive and talk to them. I think this is the right thing. And if we want to be as mature, sorry for my language, as mature as possible, let us embrace our motherland, the Gambia. I am here for extension, but with reservations, staying with restrictions that we should really follow what these regulations need, not like the previous 45 days.
You have 1 more minute.
Not the previous 45 days, but let us make sure that we come up with criteria. We talk to the ministers, let them know what they should do, and then if we have problems, we talk to them, we call them, we go to their offices. What is stopping us to go to them? Thank you very much. Long live the Gambia.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Banjul North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, yes, I am in for an extension, but I think there are certain things that we also need to promote. The Ministry of Health should really start at least developing a standard of the appropriate mask, so that we cannot make it mandatory now because some people may not have the ability to purchase it. But at least to encourage people, have it standardized, take it to Standards Bureau, they standardize it, and then encourage people to be putting it on. So even in that case, I think the argument is that if you can, the member for Serakunda is the word close of place of worship, that is restriction of use of place of worship.
in that case, they can, as they are going to do the azan, well, if they can maintain a social distancing, putting on this mask, they can come. Let's continue the engagement. But I think that's necessary. Let's promote this, the use of face masks. I think it will help us, and then also promote, continue talking about the need for social distancing. We'll continue the engagement. I think the health workers need to be saluted, those at the front line, the issues of motivation. These are all things that we can continue engaging. They should not be forgotten. They are doing tremendously well, because the other time when the health committee went to the sanatorium, in fact, my heart, I even wanted to cry. When I went there, I saw this doctor on this wheelchair. He was there. People were afraid to enter the sanatorium. They fear infection. But you see this guy in the middle of the stage. So I said, the fact that this man can do this, can stay here, I will go and then, go and engage them. Of course, I'm not committing suicide. I have to do the necessary precautions as they are doing. But this is just to show that people are really at the front line, and they need to be acknowledged, they need to be recognized. Okay, in terms of quarantine, the reason why the sustainability aspect is important, but people who are being confined must have a degree of comfort. I think that's the essence. Because you cannot ask the person to stay. It's not imprisonment. You want the person to voluntarily commit himself or herself. So that's that degree of comfort. Anywhere that can give that comfort, either in a hotel or anywhere, but that's the essence. So let's establish that principle that if we are quarantining somebody, it has to go with all the comfort, the access to the wall, outside wall, phone, Wi-Fi, television, and then, good food, good bedding. This should be the principle. Even if it is in the provinces, let's look for good places so that the person will submit himself to any rule that is in place. So basically, that's what we are talking about. If my 3 minutes is not exhausted, let me emphasize.
No, your 3 minutes is exhausted.
Okay, thank you, Honorable.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Woolly East. Sorry, is it? Just a second. Yeah, Woolly East, yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to say that from the explanation that we hear so far, we are going on the peak. We have not reached the peak. And those who are climbing mountains, do not relax. You must make sure that you are alert. So as a result, we cannot ease the restrictions as of now. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, on the restrictions, I want the borders must be closed. We cannot allow people coming from Senegal and other places. We cannot, if we do that, then we are defeating the purpose. Also, fares must be controlled. The police must be trained on these restrictions so that they'll be able to enforce them. Not only one part of it will be informed to them, but they must be alert on all the other restrictions. Also, Honorable Speaker, motorbikes, I believe if we use masks, motorbikes are the mode of mobility in the provinces. So if you have a motorbike and you cannot carry any other person, it's like the use of it is very small. But we can use masks to carry people, Honorable Speaker. Also, social relief, COVID-19 tanks should be put in places where people have difficulty to get water. For example, the places I have said, Farato and Nemakunku, places like that. Otherwise, distancing will be very difficult for people to keep in their houses. Also, Honorable Speaker, at the hospital, the Edward Francis Small Hospital, we must be able to encourage people to come to hospital when they are sick, when they have other problems. Let them not think of dealing with only COVID-19, because they said they are dealing with emergency cases only. That should not be enough. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to quote this section for human rights purpose. According to Section 36, Section 36(6), in every month during the period in which a state of public emergency is enforced and in which there is a sitting of the National Assembly, a minister authorized by the President shall make a report to the National Assembly of the number of persons detained by virtue of or under an act of the National Assembly to which Section 35 refers, and the number of cases in which the authority which ordered the detention has acted in accordance with the decisions of the tribunal as provided in subsection 4. So we don't want a scanty report as we have arrested some. We read the newspaper here. We want detailed report as to people who have been arrested and what is their condition. Thank you.
I don't want to say anything about it. Honorable Member for Latrikunda Sabiji. No. Brikama South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I still want to emphasize my initial argument with regards to enough consultation with the faith leaders. Not only Supreme Islamic Council, but there is this Raudatul Islam and Raudatul Majalis and some imams that can be consulted to at least come out with a way out. How can we strategize to make sure that we use our religious places? They are very important. The spirituality of the people cannot be compromised in our quest to fight against this pandemic. Other than that also, I still want to emphasize the issue of borders, because we are already aware of the rate in which cases are coming from Senegal, and we are surrounded in every aspect. So the machinery here to mount more security at the border post depend heavily on the government. So we are urging government to make sure that if we want to contain this thing, the borders need to be closed in every aspect. So let's try and bring in more motivation to the security aspect of it to make sure that these borders are closed completely. On that note, I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any more interventions? 3 minutes, 3 minutes. Yes, Jan Jambure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When we debated the first motion, I said it here that the Minister of Health should have prepared a comprehensive report that would decide whether we should extend or not. And I was surprised not to see on the other paper that for him to do that. And he did report, but I don't think that was a professional report, because I think he was just giving time to say anything. But there should have been a comprehensive report to tell us exactly from day one up to today what have been done. Nonetheless, I want to appeal to him, the minister, for this testing. Honorable Member for Nyani has just said that the Bansang is far away from them and crossing from Janjambure. Why don't you have a testing at Janjambure as the regional headquarters? However, I would also want the Minister of Justice to look at the Lumo, because a lot of National Assembly members are crying over this Lumo issue. Not only that, because we have a lot of our women with a lot of their onions with them as at now that are not sold. So I don't know what can be done about this. The government has to look into this. And my last thing is the closure of borders. We have seen on the television every day the immigration officers, they are doing a fantastic job. If you follow the news on the television, you see them. But they are limited. Transportation is their problem. They need to be assisted. So on that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Woolly West.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. We are in a very difficult situation. And I'm not sure whether we know we are in a very difficult situation. The minister said something in his presentation. He said, people look up to us. That I take very seriously. Whatever happens tomorrow, they will not say minister, they will not say president, they will say the National Assembly. I promise you that. That is why we are in a very difficult situation, we members of the National Assembly. It means that we have to be very strategic in what we are doing. The minister has given frightening pronostics. He has told you that you are going towards a peak. That means that you have to be very alert. Anything that enhances the movement towards the peak should be avoided. Anything that makes it possible for you to move toward the peak must be avoided. If you don't, then we are not solving a problem. This is very serious. It is to us that everybody is listening. I promise you that. So it is our responsibility. This is our sole responsibility. Tomorrow it is going, today and tomorrow is going to be like, whatever happens tomorrow, I pray that we all live to see that day. They will say the National Assembly. So please, let us be thinking strategically about what we are going to do. There is no doubt that there is an absolute need for extension. That no one can question that. You need it. Because what has been said here is asking you, telling you, you need monumental preparedness for a day which is coming. And it did not fail.
1 more minute.
Because that's how it has happened in other countries. There are certain things which are making our movement slow, but it is going to go up. So please, let us accept the fact that we need an extension. And we must all tighten our belts to assume that responsibility to work in our constituencies. We speak to our people. We sensitize our people. We educate our people. It is our responsibility. It is not impossible. It is false information which is making it difficult for people to do what they are supposed to do. And we are also adding up to that problem. By the way people speak sometimes in this National Assembly.
Thank you. You move the motion for 3 minutes. Thank you. Yes, Talinding. 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Ma. My submission is I go by the 45 days based on the report. But I also want to call on all honorable members to be reminded of our oath. Madam Speaker, in as much as we all want to secure our seats and we want to satisfy our electorates, but we should understand that we are all saying that certain restrictions need to be limited to some amounts. But for instance, we are saying that like markets, the way they are doing the restriction is not favorable to our electorates. But did we want to stay, if those people who are infected now, will we allow them to be in the society, to be with us? We didn't allow them. So why should we allow such to go on? Thank you.
Majority.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, I think one of the key things that we need to tell the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Health is to make sure that these regulations that are in place are adhered to. And it needs to be disseminated very well, and the people need to understand why we have these regulations. And I think also it is about time, a lot of people have said about it, that is this compensation or support that they are going to do to the vulnerable members who are affected by this state of public emergency. I think what the government needs to do now is to work with this social department, like the institutions like NAWEC, to have a cost analysis and see how much on an average that they collect from people paying for water and electricity, and reduce these bills and make some gratis for the people so that people can also have easy access in their compound. And I think it is the responsibility. We also need to urge the Ministry of Trade to subsidize the price of rice. We are getting into the rainy season. If we extend this up to another 45 days, it is going to be end of June, beginning of July. What do we have to make sure that the people have enough to eat? Because this food aid that is going to be distributed is going to be finished before the middle of June, even before the end of this month. People are going into Korite and end of Ramadan, so the number of kilos that are given to the people are very limited. So I think it is the Ministry of Trade
should make sure that the price of these essential commodities are reduced. And because even the market price that they are giving, some of them are not adhered to. So these are issues that we need to look into, and we make sure that this sensitization is done, and then the people understand why we are doing this. The Gambia is not alone in this. As rightly said by the Honorable Minister, I was listening to the report from WHO yesterday. 250 million people in Africa are going to be affected. And this is within this peak period. So it is a very alarming situation, and I think we need to send the message across to the people, but we must work towards compensating the people who are really affected of this COVID-19. Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members. May I now call on the honorable ministers who wish to take part before we wind up. Health has already responded, I think. Trade, no? Okay. Then Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to thank all the honorable members for their comments and observations and opinion. Let me, Madam Speaker, first of all clarify that lumos are included in the definition of open markets. And so the regulation that regulates the normal standard markets in Banjul and Serekunda are the same regulations that apply to the lumos. It may well be that because the lumos are temporary, they are not everyday markets, we will engage the relevant ministry that has responsibility with the local government authorities to consult further and see how else we can accommodate the exceptional nature of lumos as markets. But the regulations that govern open markets are applicable to the lumos. I will only add that these regulations can be improved, but we need them in place to start with. If we do not have a state of emergency, as the Honorable Member for Upper Salem said, we cannot have these regulations. So you need the state of emergency first, then you can look at the regulations and see how to improve them. We have amended some regulations. They may not be the last amendments. We will continue to engage with the National Assembly and other stakeholders to ensure that the regulations are adjusted and adapted to serve the purpose for which they are being promulgated. If you recall, the first regulation on open markets only allowed those who are selling food in the market areas to open. Now there was complaint both from the general public and from some members of this August Assembly about the hardship that is befalling on heads of families who have shops that are not selling food in the market, but who've had to close those shops. It's as a result of those complaints that we amended the regulations to allow opening times for those who are not selling food items in the market areas. That comes with consequences, unfortunately. It means more people will now go to the market. It's a difficult situation for everyone. We have to practice social distancing. I agree with all the members who have said so. There is no doubt about it. Without social distancing, we cannot effectively break the chain of transmission. But the government has challenges, particularly its human resources challenges. This is a period when there is high demand on our security services, particularly the police. They have been asked to reinforce several other sectors of government. However, I will share with you, as the chair of the steering committee on security sector reform, that we are not ruling out the use of the army to enforce these social distancing measures. But we want to make sure that when we do, if we do, that the army will be prepared to deal with the civilians in the way that they must. We have already discussed the possibility of developing a standard operating procedure to guide the army in their interactions with civilians. They are not regular police. They have a special training. I'm sure we all know that. But we can't just toss the army onto civilian streets without orientation, without training, without special standard operating procedures in terms of how they will deal with civilians. And that is only because we want to ensure we will enforce these social distancing measures. And they may be applicable in the market areas as well. Because the police feel that if they want to use reasonable force even to enforce social distancing measures in the markets, they don't have the numbers to be able to do so effectively. In fact, they will be overwhelmed. We have had this discussion. I have personally had this discussion with the Minister of Interior. This is what he said to me. And so we are thinking about it. But just because we have not yet successfully achieved that, does not mean we have to surrender all the other achievements that we have had with respect to all the other regulations. It's not a question of all or nothing. Yes, we have succeeded in closing public places, non-essential public places. We have succeeded in protecting food stocks in the country. We have succeeded in preventing re-export. We have not achieved as much success in enforcing social distancing in the market. It doesn't mean we must now throw all of the other achievements simply because we are challenged in one or two. But we will continue to look at how to enforce these measures. It's not going to be easy. The majority of our people, we know, live from hand to mouth, as they say. They walk, gather some money, go to the market to buy food and feed their families. We have to accept that reality. We are a developing country, a poor one, but we have a certain social and communal way of life that will be difficult to change. Some people just go to the market for no reason. They just like being around the market. That's the truth. If we open non-food outlets, then we create room for those who are idle to go and hang around the market. But the reality was some people were suffering as a result. So we are thinking of using the army to enforce these social distancing measures. But we need the time, as I said, to be able to do all of this. I know I have been here since this new National Assembly members were sworn in. I have had personal interactions with some of you. I know that every one of you here in this room means well for this country. It doesn't matter which political party or orientation you're from. We know that. What you say here, whether you agree or you disagree with the government, we know that you say because you have the interests of this country and the people at heart. That is the simple truth. But there comes a time when, as a government, we are called to lead an effort that threatens us as a nation. That is the time when we put aside our political differences, come together as a country. It is what our country expects of us. And so we ask that you give us these 45 days because we think it is what we need to be able to lead the fight effectively against COVID-19 in our country. We're asking you to give us these 45 days as your meaningful contribution to our attempts as a government to save lives. If you do not, then you are abandoning this government at a time when it needs your help the most. And what we do as a result is we risk the unfortunate consequences for all of us and our families and our constituencies for a certainty that is coming. The choice is yours to make. The health trajectory of our country is in your hands now, but I know that you will do the right things. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The mic is on. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thank you very much, honorable members. May I now put the question, be it resolved that this Honorable Assembly do approve the motion to further extend the period of the state of public emergency for 45 days in accordance with Section 34(5)(a)(1) of the 1997 Constitution, and further affirm the period of the public emergency regulations made thereto in accordance with Section 5(2) of the Emergency Powers Act, effective Monday, 18th of May, 2020. But before we just take the vote, honorable members, may I just draw your attention to the fact that as a requirement of the votes is 3/4, I hereby order for the votes to be taken by raising of your constituency tags in accordance with our Standing Order 16(5) to ensure that we have the correct number of votes. We are, yes. Those in favor, please say aye. No. Sorry. Yes, sorry. Those in favor, please raise your constituency tags. Those in favor. For the extension.
This is not the way.
Sorry. You were not here. We'll take a vote.
Observation.
Honorable, can you raise your tags if you are in favor of the motion for the extension for 45 days? Please, can you raise your tags if you are in favor? Those in favor.
Madam Speaker. Observation.
No, let's take the votes. Please, can you count? Look at your standing. Count. Please, can you count?
Observation.
Regulation.
Yeah, please, can you raise your tags so that we'll do the counting? We start from here.
No, the motion is 45.
The motion said 45 days. It's very clear. The motion, the report was adopted without the recommendations based on a motion moved by Honorable Salah. So, well.
Can we observe?
Can you He says he's finding it difficult to count because your tags are not maintained. Can you raise your
Can we
tag?
observe before you come?
If you are in favor of the motion, can we have your tags?
Observation.
But your ruling will not change. Take one observation. Don't change your ruling.
Tags, please, if you are in favor of the motion for 45 days extension. Please. Is your tag on Janjambure or not? I saw you. No, you have to make up your mind. Nobody is forcing anybody. No.
Madam Speaker, what we are saying.
You need to maintain your tag so that he can make a proper count.
There is a need to be observation, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, retain your tags. He's counting.
Point of
I am not counting. It's not for me to count.
Still counting.
Yes.
Can you count? That's a difficult.
Honorable members, I am being informed by the table office that some people are not raising their tax properly, so they're finding it difficult.
Point of observation, please.
Observation.
Point of tax that
you are raising.
Honorable, you can.
They are not counted. You cannot force people to raise their tax.
If they don't raise their tax, then mean they are not voting.
Observation.
Just allow him to count, right?
Halifa.
What's your problem?
Halifa Mbai.
Pardon?
Halifa Mbai.
Nobody is raising any tag for observation.
Point of observation.
Are you voting or making an observation?
Observation.
I don't think you.
Observation.
Look, you either take votes or you don't take votes. My friend, the tax are up.
Observation. Can I observe? Honorable Speaker,
if they are not taking a decision, let's walk out.
The Constitution is telling us that we can only pass this motion with 3/4 majority of the members of the National Assembly. So we must determine 3/4 of 57 people.
Members
57
present.
members. 3/4 of that.
Because that's what.
Must vote for this before it passes.
Can we confirm
And
whether it's
Honorable Speaker,
membership
what we
members present?
What we had failed to maintain in the standing orders, which I'm sure we will strive to do, is the roll call. Then you would not have had all these problems. Each member will be called and they will state whether they will abstain, support or oppose. And then you count, that will be the end. That's what we have failed to inject.
But that's not in the standing orders.
It was in the original one, but I believe that somehow we've
Want to confirm the constitutional provision?
No, I think we have oversighted it. We've oversighted it, but that has always been the rule, and that makes every matter because 3/4 is very difficult to determine.
The provision is for all members of the National Assembly. So what is the membership of the National Assembly? 57. 57. Now we take 3 3/4 of 57. Mathematician, can you help us? Sandu and...
What about member? 3/4 is 42.
No, all of members. Many presidents are going to do entire national assembly. No, they might vote, they right, they abstain. How do you know abstain? If you are absent, you mark absent. The law is the entire national assembly. It's either you call the party or you reach out to them. The entire house.
Honorable members, let us make sure that we are all doing the right thing. Now, read your constitution properly. No, not the constitution, the 1997 constitution. Read the section dealing with the state declaration of a state of public emergency.
Section
34, from 34. You can start from subsection 2. A declaration made under this section shall lapse at the expiration of a period of 7 days, or if the National Assembly is not then in session, 21 days, beginning on the day on which the proclamation is published in the Gazette, unless before the expiration of that period it has been approved by a resolution of the National Assembly, supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of the members thereof. That was the first one. Second, under subsection 3, a declaration made under subsection 1 may at any time be revoked by the President by proclamation which shall be published in the Gazette. 4, a declaration made under subsection 1 that has been approved by a resolution of the Assembly shall, subject to subsection 3, remain in force so long as that resolution remains in force and no longer. 5, a resolution of the National Assembly passed for the purpose of this section shall remain in force for 90 days or such shorter period as may be specified therein, provided that A, any such resolution may be extended from time to time by a further resolution supported, 1, in the case of a first extension by the votes, 2, in the case of a subsequent extension by the votes of not less than 3/4 of all the members of the National Assembly, but no extension shall exceed 90 days from the date of the resolution effecting the extension. And B, any such resolution may be revoked at any time by a resolution supported by the votes of the majority of all the members of the Assembly. Any provision of this section that a declaration shall lapse or cease to be in force at any particular time shall be without prejudice to the making of a further declaration under this section, whether before or after that time. So I think the operative or the relevant clause here is 2, subclause 2, in the case of a subsequent extension by the votes of not less than 3/4 of all the members. The emphasis is not mine, it is the Constitution, of all the members of the National Assembly. 3/4 of all the members of the National Assembly. So what is the membership of the National Assembly? And then we take 3/4 to vote in favor. That's my interpretation. I may be wrong. So we have a membership of what? 57. So 3/4 of 57.
56, sorry, it's 56.
Just a second, please, can we take it?
So it's not 57.
My maths is not good, so Honorable, I am not taking anything from anybody. Now, I am being informed by the technicians. Please, can we respect the chair? Please. 3/4 of 57, according to the technical staff, is 42. So now, let us take a vote. Those in favor, please raise your tags properly and we take a vote. It's very simple. Thank you. Those not in favor, please raise your tags. Thank you. The ayes have those in favor, 23. Those not in favor, 25. So the noes have it, yes, against.
Motion. It's
lost.
Yeah, they've lost.
Motion.
No, I'm not taking anything. The vote has been taken, a vote has been taken. And we've gone by the provisions of the Constitution.
Motion.
There's nothing that I can do.
Motion. Honorable Speaker, motion. I have a motion.
Motion, please.
I have a motion.
You have a motion under what provision?
53. Oh, yeah. On section 53, motion without notice. Section 53, motion without notice. My motion actually is to I rise to move a motion for the state of public emergency to be extended for 21 days.
Seconded. I rise to second the motion.
Counter motion.
Madam Speaker, observation. Madam Speaker, observation. Madam Speaker, observation. Observation.
Point of observation. Point of observation. Observation.
Observation, but as I will have to say, one thing I have to say is we have to be very careful. We are not rushing anything because we want to make sure that we follow constitutional provisions. Yes, I'm not ruling out the motion, but let me take your observation. Yes.
Honorable Speaker, this motion was brought by the Minister and it has been rejected. So it's better to consult with the Minister. We could have negotiated in terms of the timing and he would amend his motion and then we will vote on the amended motion. So, but at this time, it is important for any form of consultation to be done with the Minister to see what could be deemed to be the right thing to do.
Further consultation with the minister, is that what you're saying?
What do you do?
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, time.
Yes.
Time. I want us to sit beyond 6.
No, I cannot take yours without taking Birkama North.
Well, I only want.
I am saying, but I know it's a point of observation.
So the
what I am
observation-
saying,
the observation.
Honorable, can you allow me? I am telling Honorable Member for Serekunda West that I cannot take his intervention without taking yours first, because you were the first to raise your tie. But then, before I take your observation, I just want to draw. Yes, Serekunda West, the time.
I just want to move, what do you call it again? Motion that we sit beyond 6 because it's almost 6.
Thank you. Second, yes, Jara is.
I rise to second the motion.
Yes, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that we sit beyond 6 o'clock. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. No, thank you. The ayes. All have a look at your section 20, clause 29 of the standing orders. Specifically, Honorable Member for Serekunda, it shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the Assembly has taken a decision during the current session, except upon a motion to rescind that decision for which notice must be given. So if you need to give notice, notice can be given for consultation between the Honorable Minister and the Select Committee, and we reconvene on Monday to take it up. No, it's not for me. I mean, I'm just reading out the relevant.
That is the correct reading.
Can I hear? Have you looked at it? Yes, Fuladu, upper Fuladu.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I think, given the circumstances, that's the right course of action to take. However, I just want to emphasize this. As a plenary, we understand that this is coming, and you gave us the task to look into what the minister is coming to present, and we made our resolution or recommendation that we should go with 21 days. So for us to come, and have this problem today, could be avoided if we had not gone by our recommendation as a committee.
Observation, please.
No,
I'm not saying that the plenary doesn't
we'll
have
take, we'll take 2 or 3 more.
The plenary has a conference here.
Honorable Speaker, you see, the motion is from the minister. And the minister said he needs 45 days to carry out a task. We cannot come and pass another resolution and give him days, and if he cannot achieve his goal, he will say, you derailed my process, you sabotage. Some of us want lesser days, etc., but these are technical things. It is they who brought their motion. So now we have rejected. You must go and engage in consultation, and they will bring back their motion. That is just elementary.
I think at this point in time, we've already taken a decision.
Exactly.
So let us allow the minister to go and come back, taking into consideration the provisions of our standing orders.
Very simple.
There's nothing wrong with it. We've taken a decision. The emergency lapses is on Monday. So you have time within which to do your consultations, and we'll come back on Monday. In the meantime, he can do his consultations. Sir is therefore advised to liaise with the...
No, under 53.
Pardon?
53K. That's up to her to agree.
No, Honorable, I think we've taken a decision.
I think we need to allow them. I think we need to allow.
There are some technical issues here. Can we wait? There are some technical issues in as much as a vote has already been taken against the motion, but 18th of May. 18th of May. Yes, it starts on the night, in which case it would have expired. Members, we are not adjourned yet. The the assembly is still in session. The session is still on. We have just voted to extend or to sit beyond 6 o'clock. So please, these are very technical issues. So let us try to see how best we can all sort it out together. This is a very technical issue. Thank you.
Can I say something? Madam Speaker, I think you have already cited the relevant standing orders to that effect. I think you have already cited the relevant standing orders to that effect. You have already cited the standing orders to that effect. You've already cited the standing orders to the effect that the motion has been rejected. And all that the minister has to do now is to go back and then review and come back again. In the process, if he wants to consult anybody or whoever, that is the problem. But now we can't do anything anymore here.
Say something?
Madam Speaker.
Observation.
It's an observation. You mentioned that the minister should consult the special committee. But if we all, we should all recall that the emergency powers will cease from Sunday night. So in effect, there wouldn't be any special committee anymore because they were, it was established for the duration of the state of emergency. So, yeah.
Monday midnight. Monday midnight.
Observation. Honorable Speaker, I think the minister, I believe the minister should look at the mathematics and help us. I'm sure they must have done that. Section 32 of the Interpretation Act deals with the computation of time. And it says that if the last day of the period is a Sunday or a public holiday, which they are in this section referred to as excluded days. The period shall include the following unexcluded day. So Sunday is never counted in computation of time. And what ought to be done is the legal mathematicians must know that those are the 2 days that are excluded, holidays and Sundays. And this thing started on the 26th of March. And of course, you start with the next day, the 27th. So if all the Sundays and holidays are excluded, that's when we know the exact time of the expiration. So I will suggest that the legal mathematicians work on that and see whether they will still retain the 18th or push it a bit ahead. I think it's left to the
In fact, that became an issue, but there's a proviso in the Interpretation Act. There's a proviso in the, just read further, I think there's a proviso in the Interpretation Act. And
yes, it says that when any act or proceedings is directed at or allowed to be done or taken on a certain day, then if that day happens to be an excluded day, the act of proceeding shall be considered as done or taken in due time if it is done or taken on the next unexcluded day. Well, that is the essence, that Sunday or public holiday, you do not count. If it expired on a Sunday holiday, then you take the unexcluded the next day, yes. But I think
honorable members want the Honorable Attorney General to shed light on the exclusion or inclusion of excluded days under the Interpretation Act. Because I have my own view, but... Thank you. I've been made to understand that an honorable member wants to move a motion. Yes? I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move a motion for the state of public emergency to be extended for another 21 days. 21 days. On the K. No, on the subsequent K.
I read out the relevant standing order, that it shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question upon which the Assembly has taken a decision during the current session, except upon a motion to rescind that decision for which notice must be given. Now, if honorable members want the Honorable Attorney General to consult, then the decision has to be rescinded, and then a motion, you can have a motion under a certificate, not a certificate, but a motion as a matter of urgency for the consultation to take place. But definitely we cannot attempt to reconsider the question. It has already been taken. We cannot do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me make another attempt again. This motion, I rise on a motion for our decision using Standing Order 53K, which raised a motion agreed by the Speaker to be a matter of urgency, for us to rescind our earlier decision as a certificate of urgency.
No. It's not on track.
You cannot manipulate the House, please.
No. It will.
With all due respect, I don't think that would be a proper motion. No, with all due respect, I don't think that would be a proper motion. I cannot advise, but I think, as of now, the proper thing to do is to use 29C and then come up on Monday with a proper motion to rescind the decision of the Assembly, and then we proceed from there. Yes?
Honorable Speaker, we are here, we are trying to find a solution. Can we then all look at 144 that talked about suspension of the standing order? We see if we can find a way out.
Let the House, please. Please.
A solution has already been found. So.
Decision is taken, it's binding. It is binding. We cannot rescind that. So let's come back on Monday. It's very simple.
Yeah, that's the final decision.
Yes, we come back on Monday. It's very simple.
Simple. That's urgency session.
Yes, so be it resolved that this August Assembly do stand adjourned till Monday, the 18th of May, 2020 at 10 a.m. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. This Assembly now stands adjourned till Monday, the 8th. Please, the session is still on. The quorum, please, Honorable Member for Banjul North. Thank you. The Assembly now stands adjourned till Monday, the 18th of May, 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. And I thank you all for your patience and understanding. Having brought you here.
Alpha, I remember 1 minute.